Hey, how's it going, everybody? Scott Spreitzer here with Doug Upstone, and we are DocSports.com. Little marquee matchup. Switching to the NFL this particular week, we got the Bills and the Buccaneers. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Wanted to mention, first of all, we've got a great offer going on at DocSports.com. Normally, if you want Doug Upstone's football plays for a month, or mine, or anybody else's, it's $325 per month per capper. Guess what? You can get that same price, $325 per capper for the rest of the football season. It includes college football, the upcoming bowls, the playoffs, the championship game. It includes the rest of the NFL regular season, the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl, which is now being played in June. No, I'm just kidding, but mid-February. But anyway, the more football, the better, the longer it lasts, the happier I am, and so is Doug, I'm sure. But anyway, you can get it from any capper of your choice or as many cappers over at DocSports.com as you wish. Again, $325 per capper for the rest of the football season, college and pro football. I know, Doug, you had a fantastic stretch run and bowl season and playoff season last year, and I did so too myself, going 20-6, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we do a little bowl video next week, I would say, so folks can tune in for that. But it is the Bills and the Buccaneers. The Bucs laying 3, the total now 53.5, which means it's gone up another half point over the last few hours. We're talking about this game on Wednesday afternoon. This morning I saw mostly 53s, now 53.5. And, I don't know what, Doug, I for full disclosure, I had the Buffalo Bills on Monday night. And, of course, they had the bad weather situation. I don't know how much of that is weather, how much they got out coached, how much they got out adjusted for the weather situation, and basically outplayed. So I don't know how much the weather had to do with that. Belichick is still the master. So I'm watching that on Monday night, and I'm going, listen, you know that neither team is going to be able to complete a lot of downfield passes. You know you're going to have to stop the run. But New England goes into that. Belichick going, if you stop the run, you're probably going to beat us. And they still were ready to face a ground game on defense. And then I look at Belichick, who is copying a Bud Wilkinson, pass attempts formula from the 1950s when Oklahoma was running the wishbone and through the 70s, throwing 3 passes in the entire game. Then I look at Buffalo, they threw 30 passes into that muck, completed 15. They were just badly adjusted, badly outcoached, and everything else that goes with it. They were AFC favorites basically almost before the season began. Now they're in must-win mode. I mean, they got a combined 31 points against Jacksonville, Indy, and New England over the past month. Do they get this right? Do they come in and beat Tampa Bay, who has not nearly as much to play for when you consider they're so far ahead in their division? Or are the Bills who they appear to be of late?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, and there's lots of ways to look at that. Certainly the win played a factor. The thing I guess I've noticed about Buffalo, and this goes back to 2 weeks ago when they lost to Indianapolis, and then also last year when they lost in the regular season to Kansas City, is that for whatever reason, when this team has when the opposing team, I should say, starts running the ball on them, and let's just say they get 3 straight first downs and they probably maybe passed once. It's like you can see them visibly sagging, Scott. I mean, it's just like there's just like we're supposed to be better than this. Why can't we stop the run? And that was exactly what happened the other night. And the problem was in this particular case, and it's been the case in all these types of games, is that teams either are going to just outside the tackles. Okay, so they pull guards or whomever, different players, centers, whatever. They pull them outside, left or right, and they just have advantages. So they get no penetration. They get it, being Buffalo, they get no penetration to disrupt these plays. And then it's wide open. Then the running back kind of goes along, and all of a sudden he sees a hole, puts foot in the ground, boom, he's on the way. Okay, and it's just the same thing. And then on plays up the middle, they seem to over pursue, or the pre-snap stuff really fools them. I mean, speaking of the linebackers and the safeties, I mean, on the touchdown run the other night, I mean, the replay clearly showed from the end zone, there was no one there. I mean, not a soul there. And this just happens too often. Now, McDermott, I don't know about you. They talked about it quite a bit, but they seemed very anxious. Okay, as the
Mhm.
coach, and usually I'm not gonna say stoic, but he was just geared up right from
Yeah,
the start. So that kind of, I guess, maybe was a precursor as to how his team played, jittery,
yeah.
like he was. And and then let's face it, Josh Allen is not the same quarterback this year, and his progression of each year, which everybody was amazed at coming out of Wyoming, it's gone backwards this year for a number of different reasons, and mostly all to do with him. So yeah, I see some problems here, and I also see a Tampa Bay team that, just like last year, Scott, December came around. They started to feel it. They started to get it.
Mhm.
They've won three in a row. They've covered three in a row, averaging almost 33 points a game in those three contests. And it's like, it seems like here we go again with Tampa. Now, what do you think?
Yeah, I was watching the game the other night. I was kind of flipping back and forth. I usually watch when they're on. I usually watch Peyton and Eli, that version of
Oh,
Monday Night Football, which is an absolute treat. For those of you out there watching this that haven't watched the Mannings on Monday Night Football, do yourself a favor and check it out. But I also flipped over to the game itself on a couple of occasions on Monday night, and they were mentioning that the announcers on the regular broadcast of the game were talking about McDermott being a mess. Basically, they didn't say those words, but he looked like he was just really going through the different emotions and not relaxed at all. You look at the other sideline. Belichick's like, we're just going to do what we do, and he looks his normal self. You look at McDermott, and he's like a spaz, for lack of a better word on this. And I'm like, come on, man, you got to be cool headed. You got to portray that to your team, to your players, and they played scattered, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They played like their head coach looked on the sideline. And you're right, man. It was like 11-7. It was never any kind of blowout. But boy, it felt like it was 31-3. I mean, I had Buffalo, Doug, and I never felt like I had a shot, even though they did. It's 14-10 or whatever, and they're driving. They end up trying a field goal that gets missed. But on that drive, if they score the touchdown, you lay 2.5, you get the win. But it just never felt like it was going to come together for that football team on Monday night in what was otherwise a close score. I see what their offense is doing as far as their struggles are concerned. I don't think their defense is going to pick it up this week. I think you can run on them, which means terrific Tom is going to pass the heck out of them if Buffalo overcommits to try to slow down any kind of running game. They're out of position at times on defense, as you kind of mentioned, and they do over pursue. I mean, my gosh, Brady and Arians, they're going to be ready for this if the Buccaneers care about this game, and there's no reason to think they don't. And by the way, they don't have as much to play for, so to speak, in this one. I mean, they obviously want to have the best record at the end of the year in the NFC, but as far as their division, they're well in front. But that just means you get a Tampa Bay team led by the greatest quarterback of all time in a relaxed state of mind. Let's go out and do what we do. And so, as far as that's concerned, I think they have an advantage, Tampa. But as far as Buffalo is concerned, teams get into must-win situations because they're not good enough to not be in must-win situations at this point of the season. That doesn't mean they can't come out and have a big game and win this game, though. I like the over here, Doug. I think you're going to see some scoring in this contest. You already see that total being up there, 53, 53 and a half. And I do think there's going to be a decent amount of points put up by both teams. As far as Josh Allen, it's funny because when he came out of Wyoming, and I'm in Las Vegas, so Mountain West country, and I go to a bunch of home games, UNLV home games. I do like a little pain in my life, so I go to a lot of UNLV home games. But so I've seen Josh Allen play in college, and when he came out, I thought, I don't know that he's all that they're making him out to be at the NFL level. But what do I know? I'm not an NFL scout. I don't scout quarterbacks. I try to beat the spread. But I still thought he was a little bit overvalued. And then last year, you see these major improvements. All right, I might be wrong. I've been, believe it or not, wrong before, and I'll be wrong again. But but I'm watching him with that. Okay, I could be wrong. This year, I'm like back to I think he's overvalued a little bit. I want a quarterback who is like a Tom Brady, who's like a Patrick Mahomes. I know that's almost impossible to find. They don't come along a whole lot throughout the course of a coach's lifetime. I don't want a guy who's thinking about running the football every other time he drops back to make a pass. That's why, for instance, I'm a Lamar fan with Baltimore, but only to a certain extent. I don't want the quarterback having to be the leading rusher. And that's not always the quarterback's fault. But Josh Allen is thinking more about running half the time than he is passing. I don't like the way he passes the football. He misses guys sometimes. Again, that doesn't mean they can't come out and win this game. They might get back to the way they were playing a few weeks ago, but the bottom line is, I do think it's going to be a game that goes over the total.
Yeah, the thing with Allen, I remember him distinctly in college, and he had a super junior season with Wyoming, but that was a really good team, that
Yeah.
he had for the Mountain West, and he had and then his senior year he lost I think every receiver graduated. Okay, so he had a whole new crew, and you might even remember they played Iowa at Iowa. And he was like 6 for 17, I believe, something like that, was sacked half a dozen times. He looked terrible. And he basically played that way all year until their bowl game when I think he had like 6 touchdown passes or something like that in their bowl game. Might have been the one in Boise, I believe, even. But yeah, I mean, he was not very good. So I thought, there's no way this guy, I mean, yeah, you can lose your receivers, but by the end of the season, you should have something going with these guys, right?
Sure.
So I wasn't high on him at all. But by the same token, based on last year, I give him all the credit in the world for improving his accuracy and being a better quarterback. Now, as far as the game, Scott, everybody is ready to give up on Buffalo. Okay. And
Yeah.
I completely understand it, but I think you bring up a very good point. Desperation. Now, does a desperate team always win? No. Okay. But if Buffalo loses, they're going to be 7-6. Okay. Now, that's still
Mhm.
probably going to be, however they finish the season, good enough to make the playoffs. But I think that would be a very tough thing to overcome if you truly still do have Super Bowl aspirations. And let's face it, there's been many teams, after now with an extra week, especially to play, there's been many teams that have gotten hot late. Okay,
Sure.
New York Giants comes to mind against New England, for example.
Mhm.
Now Buffalo in this one this year, they've actually played better on the road than they have at home. They're 4-2
They
straight up
have.
and against the spread on the road. And the last 12 times, I believe it is, they've been a road dog. They're 9-1-2 against the spread. Then I looked up this little nugget and I've actually kind of let it slip in my mind, okay, this year. And I see it, but I just haven't gone and done the work. So I did. Okay. Teams that have won or lost exactly 3 games against the spread, okay, and there are no buys involved
Mhm.
this season, if they've won 3 in a row or lost 3 in a row against the spread in their next game, if they do the opposite of what they just did, they're 22-13 this year.
Mhm.
Okay, solid number. So what do we have? We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having won and covered 3 in a row coming into this game since losing to New Orleans and Washington. Then also like the fact that Buffalo is 9-1 in non-conference games, okay, against
Mhm.
the spread most recently. And if you want to go a step further, in all 12 of their games, the straight up winner is 12-0 against the number.
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore the fact that Tampa Bay is 5-0 and winning by 21 plus points at home. And I'm going to go out of my Douglas fir tree to the very end of the branch, and I'm going to predict the Buffalo Bills not only cover the spread at the 3.5, I'll say they win the game outright, Scott.
So are you going to sprinkle a little bit on the money line?
Exactly.
I tell you what, again, I'm not big into team trends, um, unless they're recent. Like you said, yours is obviously recent that you just talked about, because I want it to be most of the same personnel, coaching staff, things like that.
Right.
If I'm going to look at a team trend, if they're angles, what I look for more are angles. If it's going to be going back a few years, I want like almost like human situations where just human nature teams, no matter who they are in the NFL, you just say like NFL teams in a certain situation against other NFL teams in a certain situation are 25-5 or whatever. I look more for that because it's more of a human nature thing than it is just trying to find an individual team. Because so many times the individual team trends might have been great under Joe Ferguson, but might not have mattered at all under Josh Allen. And if you don't know who Joe Ferguson is, if you're under 40, ask your dad if you're watching this. But anyway, the bottom line is like you get into that so much where I'll see people that'll talk about trends that have been going on for 8 to 10 years that have to deal with a team. an organization. I'm like, throw that crap out. But what you just said, and the reason I wanted to bring this up, is you're talking about recent numbers with a lot of the same core personnel, both on the coaching staff and with the players, the key players, at least the key positions themselves. So I do like those. Yeah, like I said, I mean, just because Buffalo's looked messy a couple of times in November and into December doesn't mean they can't come into this game and win this game. And it would be like the NFL this year if Buffalo wins this game outright by 10 points. You know, like almost owns this game from start to finish. That would be like this year's NFL. So you're going to go with Buffalo here. Again, any money line action there, or are you just recommending take the points?
Officially, I'm going to say take the points. Myself personally, yes, there will be some money line involved.
Okay, and then also I'm going to go with over 53. I guess it's 53 and a half. I'll have to grid it by now because it looks, I got like 20 books on my screen and 17 of them have 53 and a half. So we'll go with that. So the Bills from Mr. Upstone, and I'm going to recommend a play on the over. Might have this as a premium play. We'll see this week as we wrap up our handicapping Wednesday night, Thursday morning for the upcoming weekend. And also wanted to mention, folks, you see that at the top of your screen. It's a $60 free account. If you are not yet a member at DocSports.com, click on the link below the video, get your $60 account because it's a great way to give Doc Sports a trial run. You get to use those free $60 on any of our daily packages, whether it be Doug, whether it be me, anybody else on the roster over at Doc Sports. Cool way to give it a trial run. Don't forget to check every single day throughout the week the Handicappers Daily Packages, college basketball, NBA, NHL, soccer, UEFA Champions League. I got one eye over here on a couple of soccer games on my TV. TV's up on the wall in my office here as I'm talking to Doug. So my top play in soccer got postponed on Wednesday, unfortunately. But anyway, just check out all the pages every day because there's a whole lot going on with all the daily sports. He's Doug Upstone. I'm Scott Spreitzer. We are DocSports.com. Let's put them in the win column, everybody.